Welcome to today's briefing. I'm Aaron. I want to give credit to the United States Naval Institute for publishing the Fleet Tracker every week. We're going to use that again today. This shows us where the United States Navy is deployed around the world. They've even added the U.S. Coast Guard to this graphic recently, and I really appreciate that, so we can give them some credit as well. Well, over the summer, the Carrier Strike Group Ronald Reagan and all the ships attached to it have been very busy doing multiple exercises with many other nations. And they're finally back in their forward home port of Japan, where they're getting some well-needed maintenance and liberty for the crew, time off, seeing their families again. They had a great summer, and look forward to seeing them at sea again soon. The American Amphib Ready Group is in the Manila, Philippines. So we're going to take a little trip over here to Manila. This photo is courtesy of Manila Bulletin News. Thank you to those guys. Full credit to you for a couple great shots we're going to show you here today. USS America has the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit on board, and they're enjoying a Liberty port in the Philippines. Now, when I was in the Navy, this was the pinnacle of Liberty ports in the Pacific anyway. You always wanted to go to the Philippines if you had a chance to. Sadly, for a short period of time, they closed the base there and didn't let us pull in. But that's all changed now. So we are back in business with the Philippines, enjoying some good liberty there. Now, these Marines are very exhausted because they did back-to-back large-scale exercises. The first one was Talisman Sabre 2023. That's about a 6-week exercise, very long, even for an operation today. And then they immediately rolled into, down there around Australia, Exercise Malabar 2023. So that really shows the endurance of not just the people and the crew, also the equipment being able to operate and sustain simulated combat operations for that period of time is a great testament to both the Marine Corps and the United States Navy. Great job to all the sailors down there. And do you know who was with us? Japan. Japan's ship Izumo has been converted to a light carrier. Now, she may still have the designation of DDH, but she's been practicing with the United States Marine Corps operating the F-35 Bravo. That's the short takeoff and landing F-35 from her carrier deck. And so she will become a light carrier. She's already operating as if she is a light carrier. I'm just not sure if they've officially changed the designation yet. The point is, she's been with us the entire summer. Japan as well has a great ship that doesn't break down. They can sustain combat operations, albeit simulated, over a long period of time with the United States. So great job to Japan for demonstrating that this year. All right, let's move a little bit south of Manila. We're staying in the Philippines, but we're going to Palawan Island. This is a long island that borders the South China Sea just to the west, where we have a couple patrols going on. The Philippine ship Jose Rizal FF-150 looks like a little miniature Arleigh Burke. I love this thing. I want a model of this on my desk. Is patrolling with United States ship USS Ralph Johnson. And they're just keeping an eye on the area around 2nd Thomas Shoal. And the reason why that's significant is there is a small Marine detachment on board a beached landing ship called the Sierra Madre. They've been there for a long time, many years, and they receive supplies from the Philippines because it's a Philippine-occupied shoal. And the Chinese Coast Guard has a history of delaying an attempt to prevent resupplying this handful of Marines that has no access to fresh water, food, energy for their generators, gasoline, stuff like that, without continuous resupply. And so the Chinese have been trying to prevent that so the Marines would not be able to stay there. It's a de facto blockade without saying blockade, because the legal term of blockade is an act of war, so nobody wants to call it what it actually is. Now that the Americans are back working with the Philippines, and we've increased our bases recently in the island of the Philippines from 4 or 5 to 9 now, and we've been able to do visits as we just demonstrated. We're now patrolling this area with our warships and the Philippine frigates as well. Since this has begun, there has been no delay or interruption of supplies to the 2nd Thomas Shoal. So this is just one example, another example, if you will, of the American presence in this area de-escalating tensions and belligerent activity from another nation on a smaller nation. So our presence is a de-escalating force in the area. All right, let's move over a little bit farther south to the Indian Ocean, which is a large body of water, between Africa and Australia and India to the north, where we have something interesting going on that I wanted to bring to your attention. There are 2 Ticonderoga cruisers that have been with the Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group all summer. They too have been through multiple exercises and demonstrated great endurance. But they're still in the Indian Ocean. They did not return to their home port of Japan with the Ronald Reagan. So I'm not sure what's going on here. This is the USS Robert Smalls, and USS Antietam has a tactical oiler with her, or a tanker oiler. It's an American high-speed oiler that would normally stay with the Carrier Strike Group. Well, these 2 Ticonderogas have this oiler with them, and they're doing something. I'm not sure what it is yet. So we're going to throw some ideas out there, and you guys can put in the comments what you think 2 Ticonderoga cruisers working together with an oiler, where they might be going. First, these ships have been on the chopping block for decommissioning for years. The Navy's been pushing schedules to Congress to decommission these ships for a long time. Congress keeps delaying or just outright not approving the decommissioning. Is it possible that their time has come to return to the United States for decommissioning? And that's why they have the oiler with them, so they transit the Pacific Ocean. That's one option. The second option is they could be just returning to Japan as they normally would. They're just a little bit delayed, doing some further operations in the Indian Ocean. The last thing, and probably the least likely thing, but something to consider, is will they go to the Persian Gulf? There's a lot of activity in the Persian Gulf right now, so we're going to go ahead and head over there and talk about what's going on. So here we have the USS Bataan. She's been operating in the Persian Gulf now for a couple of weeks with USS Carter Hall. They have the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit on board, and since they've been present, the IRGCN has not. They've been staying in port when the RGCN, those are the small boats that like to swarm civilian vessels, when they do come out, they stay well within their Iranian waters. And the big thing is they're simply not harassing tankers anymore. They're not harassing civilian cargo traffic or shipping anymore. As long as the Americans are there, stuff like this doesn't happen. So this is just another example, a second example I offer you in this video, where the presence of the American U.S. Navy is de-escalating belligerent behavior from larger nations with larger navies on either smaller nations or civilian shipping, as it is in this case. So here we have just one of 5 tankers that have been taken over in the past, say, 2 years by the IRGCN, captured, if you will, so they can take the oil. They often take the crew hostage, can ransom the crew or release the crew. And this is what the Iranian IRGCN was doing when the Americans were gone for about an 18-month period. Now that we're back, this has stopped. So we'll probably continue to see a strong U.S. Navy presence in the Persian Gulf going forward, because we've given the Iranians and other nations a chance to police themselves, and everyone has behaved except for one. And it only takes one country misbehaving to bring the Americans back. And that's what the Iranians did. So what are the Iranian leaders doing now that the Americans are back? Well, they're doing a lot of this. These knuckleheads look really bored, if not shocked, that they're experiencing the consequences of their own actions. These guys are a bunch of clowns. They make the Ferrari pit wall strategist look competent. And for reference, here's the Ferrari pit wall strategist. Now, they've been occupying their times in Iran, since they're not able to, take over ships anymore, with parades and other civilian activities like this demonstration here. I don't know what this person did to deserve this kind of punishment, but I love this gentleman right here, up here in the gray robe. He's the only one that looks as shocked and appalled as I was when I saw this video. Oh, and Iranian boots, they apparently double as compression socks right now. Now that's a boomer joke, so most of you young people won't get that, but this is what they're doing with their time now, is my point. And as long as they're not capturing civilian shipping, I'm kind of okay with this. Let them be them. It's a different culture. Don't judge them. How dare you? All right, let's move on to the Gerald R Ford Carrier Strike Group is in Turkey. And they are in Anatolia, if I'm saying that name right, the southern part of Turkey, the Mediterranean side of Turkey. And so we're going to talk about them real quick. Look at this beautiful video shot. This is a courtesy U.S. Navy.
This is USS Gerald R Ford sailing in formation with Italian aircraft carrier Cavour, if I'm saying that name right. And you can really get a sense of how large this is the new class, the Ford class of aircraft carrier. It is significantly larger than any carrier we've built in the past. And it's not just about size. This allows our Navy to operate many more air sorties simultaneously from one aircraft carrier. Now, of course, the numbers of the exact capability are not public. What is published, and this is an old value, and I believe it is for the older aircraft carriers, is we could sustain 120 aircraft in the air for a 12-hour period and doing rotations, But that's just the civilian published number. The actual number capability of this new aircraft carrier is not and never will be public. Just know that it is much more than that. And we're going to build a handful of these. It's not going to be a one-to-one replacement. We have 12 or 11 actually now aircraft carriers in the United States Navy. If we did a one-to-one replacement, we would be really powerful. But the fact is we don't need to. We can build, I think they're planning on building something like 6 of these, which is still enormously expensive. But because they're so much more capable, we don't need as many of them. And it's a beautiful ship. I would encourage anyone, if you are in the vicinity or get a chance to get a public tour of the new Ford class carriers, take it. Even if you can't get on board, if you could stand on the pier next to it, the size of these things is a testament to American shipbuilding. It's really, really impressive. So I would encourage everyone to do that if you get the opportunity. But speaking of Turkey, let's take a look at senior content developers Typhoon Osbrecht's new article in Defense Procurement International. And that's right, we have trade magazines just like Hollywood has in the military industry. So Turkey has built and continues to improve next generation, fully integrated unmanned vehicles. And this is a fleet of vehicles. We're talking air, sea, and semi-submersible now. This is the big one. There's now a semi-submersible suicide drone that is going to change warfare again. These unmanned vehicles we knew for years. We said this would be a whole new paradigm shift in naval warfare, and of course it is. And as Turkey's actually leading the way in this unmanned, pushing the boundaries of technologies and capabilities, and they've come up with some amazing ships here. So let's take a look at this first one here. I believe this is called the Sandcar, and this is good for, patrolling, and it's integrated fully with Turkey's network. There's another mothership that can launch these USVs. They'll carry a number of them on board and retrieve them autonomously. So we're talking about this unmanned surface vehicle that you're looking at on your screen, talking to a mothership that is also unmanned, that is then networked with manned vessels or manned stations ashore, controlling everything. They do have what's called MUM teams, M-U-M, and this is manned and unmanned teams. So there's always a human making a decision with the vehicles. So while they certainly could be autonomous, they're not yet. They're keeping a human in the loop, which I think is really important, because when you talk about applying or authorizing lethal force, there should always be a human on the trigger. I'm afraid eventually we're going to get away from that. But for right now, Turkey's doing the right thing, keeping humans in the loop when you're operating these lethal vehicles semi-autonomously. So these vehicles are good for a couple things. One, they're low cost. That's the most important thing to just about every government out there, is they don't want to spend a lot of money on a big Navy because they don't have the budget. Okay. But besides being low cost, these can go on high risk missions without risking human life. That's kind of the whole point of this, is you can go do something extremely dangerous, and if you lose the asset, you don't lose a sailor. So that's one big thing. Now for peacetime operations, you can extend your sensor range. And this is something that we were doing now with manned aircraft and ships as well. Now you can do it with a fleet, or a swarm, if you want to call it that, of these smaller unmanned surface vehicles. And this is good for ISR, that's intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance of the surrounding area. And they can be very hard to detect. We're seeing this example in its very unstealthy configuration. They can be configured to be very low observable from all sensors. We're talking not just radar, we're talking visual and infrared as well. This new generation, the Sandcar that they're building, can carry a heavier payloads than previous generations. This is Turkey again, pushing the boundaries of not just sensor capability, endurance, and speed. They can carry more equipment or firepower to the battlefield that gives them increased lethality at a lower cost. And the combination of those two things should scare the pants off you who understand what I'm talking about. That is a scary combination for up-and-coming emerging nations. So here's a picture that Typhoon took himself. So credit to him for this photo. This is the semi-submersible suicide drone there on the bottom. It's either the KK or Ka. Not sure how to pronounce that properly, but this is a game changer right here. In Ukraine, with the war with Russia, we're seeing the small unmanned surface vehicles motor in and ramming the side of warships and exploding. Well, that's what the semi-submersible will do, but the only thing that's going to be visible on the surface is that small antenna at the very top. That's the part that's painted black there. So you're not going to see this thing coming at night, essentially. And even if you have like infrared sensors, because the machinery and engine is underneath on the bottom of this, you're not going to be able to see it looking down at it. So, and if it is detected, you're not going to be able to shoot it with the point defense that Russia is using now to defend themselves against the current generation of USVs Ukraine is using. This thing is going to be right below the surface, and so that's going to have a little bit of effect on defending or keeping itself, operational as it closes in during its terminal phase. So great, fantastic photos, really good, impressive work pushing engineering boundaries in unmanned vehicles coming out of Turkey. This is not new. We've talked about this before, but Turkey continues to push these low-cost USVs, and now they're becoming extremely capable. So I do want to say thank you again to Typhoon Osbrecht. He's doing great work at Naval News. He's writing for great publications like Defense Procurement International, and he plays a critical role on our production team here at Subbrief. And so I just want to take this moment to say him personally, thank you very much, one, for joining our team and making Subbrief better. Everyone should follow Typhoon Osbrecht on social media. He's on Twitter at Typhoon Osbrecht. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Bye. Hey, this is Aaron. I want to say one quick thing about China. The children who grew up in the one-child policy saw the benefit of being an only child, a little emperor, and now that they're married and having a family, they're choosing to only have one child and give that child the best life that they can. This is not fixing the demographic problem in China. China's population will continue to decline despite the one-child policy being removed. China is in serious economic decline. They have a largely male-dominated population. That male population is of military age. I expect them to do one of two things, folks. They're either going to join the military and fight a war, or they're going to revolt. Keep an eye on China. Its economy's collapsing. This is going to make the American economic collapse of 2008 look insignificant. The people of China are going to become desperate. And a desperate nation with nuclear weapons scares the shit out of me.